Rob Whittaker's gone face-to-face with Israel Adesanya twice, and both times he dealt with a crushing defeat by the fighting champion. And now the tough-talking Australians set his sight on Adesanya's belt once again, and he's issued his nemesis a warning too. If you want to get all the details about Whittaker's plans, stick with us. We've got all the details. Anyway, let's get right into it. First things first, Whittaker issues warning to Adesanya. Robert Whittaker recently returned to the #1 ranking, and he's going right after Israel Adesanya's belt. In his opinion, even though he's lost twice to him already, the Sydney fighter still think he's the most dangerous man in the UFC. The message not only for Adesanya, who's already expressed his lack of desire to face Whittaker for a third time, but also for everyone who thinks that he can't be a champion again. If Whittaker manages to take down Brazilian Paulo Costa in Perth on the 12th of February at UFC 284, then Adesanya is going to have little choice in the matter of going up against the Australian for a third bout. Unless, of course, the New Zealander decides to finally and permanently move up to light heavyweight, something which his coach has definitely alluded to in the recent past. Whatever ends up happening, Whittaker's confident that he's got a pretty good chance of winning. In his opinion, he works hard, trains hard, and has the right mentality fighting. And above all, he's the best at it. And while he obviously knows that he's lost not once, but twice to Israel, he still admitted that it's definitely a hard fight for him. But Whittaker still believes that it takes nothing away from how good he himself is as a fighter. In fact, he's confident that he's the most dangerous man in the UFC. Next up, how will facing Adesanya a third time be different? No matter how confident Whittaker might be about his chances, the fact remains that he was pretty confident the last two times as well, and he got absolutely thrashed. So what's going to be different in his third face-off? Well, first of all, the Australian strongly believes he's in the best shape of his entire career. Not to mention, no matter what, the fight against Adesanya for his title is exactly the fight Whittaker wants to aim for. According to him, he's in a sport where there are rankings and there's a title, and considering he's actively competing in the sport, the only goal that makes sense to him is to go after that title. Otherwise, what is he even doing here? Whittaker also shared in a recent interview that he's happier than ever, hungrier than ever, and just all around better than ever before. He's really happy and proud of the way his career has turned out so far, but at the same time, he believes that the best is yet to come, and he's only just getting started. Moving on, let's talk about his upcoming fight against Paulo Costa. Whittaker and Costa are set to fight each other early next year. Interestingly, Costa also lost a title fight against Adesanya, after which he ended up dropping a decision to Marvin Vettori before finally bouncing back to defeat Luke Rockhold in his latest bout. Now, he's set to fight Robert Whittaker in 2023, and while the Australian is pretty confident about his chances against Costa, he's still choosing to stay cautious for now. According to the 31-year-old, he's already running out of people to fight against, and so when Whittaker got the chance to go against the Brazilian on his home ground in Perth, there was no reason for him to refuse. In his own words, Costa's as much of a threat as everybody else, and is a pretty high-level athlete with a great skill set. Whittaker's definitely noticed that the Brazilian's already taken down a lot of really good fighters, and so he considers himself a real threat to everything he's built so far. Still, Whittaker's got 4 whole months to work on and bring out the best of himself, and if there's one thing he's definitely sure of, it's that no one comes even close to the best Robert Whittaker. Speaking of awesome UFC fighters, which fighters turned out to be kryptonite for legendary champions? Throughout the history of the UFC, we've seen a lot of amazing champions come and go, some of which people even thought were absolutely unbeatable sometimes, but everyone has their kryptonite, no matter how invincible they might seem, and this is still true in the world of MMA. Here are 5 UFC fighters who proved to be kryptonite for a legendary champion, starting off with Randy Couture. Back in the early 2000s, there was no question about who was the most dominant champion in the UFC, light heavyweight kingpin Tito Ortiz. Not only does his takedown seem unstoppable, but he was also proven ground threat for submissions, and his striking appeared to be improving remarkably too. Nobody in the promotion looked like they could even come close to beating him, and so when the 40-year-old former heavyweight champion Randy Couture positioned himself as Ortiz's top challenger, not many people thought that was going to change, especially considering that Couture was past his best days, until it did. Not only did the natural take down Ortiz, but he also made it look like it was a piece of cake. In hindsight, this shouldn't have been such a surprise. Couture had a far better wrestling credentials after all, but it was still shocking to see such a dominant champion being treated like a child, with Couture even spanking him in the final moments of the fight. The natural turned out to be Ortiz's kryptonite, who was never the same after that humiliating defeat. At number 2, we have BJ Penn. With 2 title reigns and a total of 7 successful title defenses under his belt, Matt Hughes is among the most accomplished champion in UFC history, and while his defeat against George St. Pierre in 2006 definitely signaled the end of his time at the top of the 170-pound division, it's actually BJ Penn who turned out to be his kryptonite. Not only did the prodigy put an end to Hughes' first epic title reign in early 2004, but he also went on to defeat him in their trilogy bout later in 2010. Not a lot of fans thought that Penn would take down Hughes when they first fought each other, mostly mostly because he had never fought at 170 pounds at that point, but also because he was going against a fighter who most thought he was much bigger and stronger than him. Of course, the prodigy proved him all wrong. And while in the rematch, Penn did end up losing, it had mostly been because he had been dealing with a rib injury at the time. Still, the Hawaiian had the last laugh in their final match, taking just 21 seconds to knock out the former champion and proving once and for all that no matter what Hughes did, Penn would always be the winner. At third place, Israel Adesanya. While he might not be as legendary as some of the others on this list, there's no denying that by 2019, Robert Whittaker was a force in the UFC's middleweight division. The Reaper held wins over huge names like Jacare Souza, Uriah Hall, Yoel Romero, and Derek Brunson, after all. And at that point, a lot of people thought he was unstoppable until he met Israel Adesanya later that year. The last stylebender not only served him as his first crushing defeat since 2014, but he fell again in their rematch too. And since then, Whittaker's done pretty well. He's even proven his brilliance by taking down former title challenger Marvin Vettori with ease, but Adesanya still is one fatal flaw. Only time will tell if he'll change the story in their third bout. Now at fourth place, Alexander Volkanovski. Max Holloway began a whole new era at 145 pounds when he dethroned the legendary Jose Aldo in 2017 to claim the UFC featherweight title, and then went on to smash him again in a rematch. That feeling only intensified when Blessed took down the likes of Brian Ortega and Frankie Edgar. At that point, even Joe Rogan called him the GOAT of featherweight, at least until Alexander Volkanovski changed their minds. Alexander the Great took him down in 2019 when he insanely used his leg kicks in combination to claim Holloway's title in a major upset. Then in a rematch 7 months later, he did it again and again, and it looks like no matter what Holloway can do, Volkanovski does it better, making him the literal definition of Kryptonite. Finally, Holm. As reigning bantamweight champion, Ronda Rousey was so good that she could take down top-ranked challengers in literal seconds without breaking a sweat. She was so dominant in her prime that even Joe Rogan once suggested that she should compete with the promotion's top male at 135 pounds. But that was all before she met her Kryptonite, Holm. Holm was just starting out in the UFC, and while she had some MMA experience, she'd never fought at the top level, and nobody really thought she stood a chance against Rousey when they came face to face. Everyone was wrong. Rousey didn't even come close to taking down Holm, who landed a killer head kick and proved to be a total underdog in the fight. And while Holm didn't go the kind of dominance her predecessor did, she still remained the reason why Rousey's reign had to come to an end. And that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Whittaker will be able to finally beat Adesanya this time? Let us know in the comments down below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.